On today's show, a fourth quarter Cavalanche puts the Cavs at 11 consecutive wins. We'll talk about that. The big night Jarrett Allen played, plus Javonte Green doing some things for the Cavs. That and so much more, all on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content, a proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, make sure you are signed up for the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter. It's your one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free now at lockedondaily.com. That is lockedondaily.com. The Cleveland Cavaliers moved to 51-10 on the season with a 139-117 win over the Chicago Bulls on the road on Tuesday night. The Cavs have won 11 consecutive games for the third time this season, which is absolutely unbelievable, something that I don't think anyone would have believed. If I would have told you before the season the Cavs had 3 winning streaks of 11 or more games, you probably would have looked at me like I was crazy, or you're the most optimistic Cavs fan in the entire world. But the Cavs didn't play all that well in this game, and they used a fourth quarter Cavalanche to get the victory. So this game was tied at 107 with just under 7 minutes left in regulation. And up until that point, it felt a lot like the Portland game did on Sunday, where the first half, the Cavs didn't have great energy. In the first half against Portland, didn't think they had great energy. In the third quarter, the Cavs came out and they looked really good on offense, but they didn't play all that great on defense. In the third quarter against Chicago, they outscored the Bulls 39-36. Sound familiar? Because that's exactly basically what happened against Portland. I think it might have been 37-35 against the Blazers on Sunday. And then in the fourth quarter, they turned things up on both ends of the floor, and they look like a championship caliber team. And I do think part of this is because they kind of know that they can. And I was was not at the game tonight. Obviously, I did not make the trip to Chicago, but I was watching the broadcast. And Ty Jerome met with the media afterwards, and they showed it on the post-game show on FanDuel Sports Network. And basically, he kind of admitted that some games are a little tougher to get up for than others. And this game was the third game in 5 nights for the Cavs, which at this point in the season, I just don't view that as an excuse. But it's also not a game that is going to bring the same focus level that a game against a team like Boston or New York or even maybe Orlando last week does, because the Bulls are a pretty bad team. Like, there's a good chance that they do make the play-in because somebody has to finish 10th in the Eastern Conference. But they might finish 10th and have 50 losses. Like, they could technically play in the postseason with 50 losses, which would have to be some sort of record for the worst team in NBA history to play a postseason basketball game. But that might be what happens with the Bulls. And then for the final 6 minutes, really 6 of the final 7 minutes, I guess we could say, because that they pulled the starters with just over 2 minutes left. So the fact that they were tied at 107 with fewer than 7 minutes remaining, and then with just over 2 minutes left, Kenny Atkinson could pull the starters because the lead was so big. Like, that is, I think, a really good reminder of just how good this team is when everything is clicking. And of course, Evan Mobley did not play in this game. He was out with rest. I will talk about Jarrett Allen and the big night that he had coming up, as well as Javonte Green, because I thought he gave the Cavs some great minutes on Tuesday night. But it's a reminder that Cavalanche is a reminder that this team has so much depth. This team is so good in so many areas that even on a night when they don't have Evan Mobley, even on a night on Sunday, or I guess afternoon in that game, where they don't have Donovan Mitchell, even in games where they haven't had Darius Garland, like, they're still capable of going on these incredible runs. And it feels like they're always fueled by somebody different. The fact that they outscored the Bulls 32-10 over the final, again, 6 of the final 7 minutes or 5 of the final 7 minutes, whatever you want to call it, is wildly impressive. Like that is, I don't want to say that's why they're a championship team, because this is a game that probably should not have been as close as it was, right? Like you look at who the Bulls are, you look at who the Cavs are. The Cavs were favored by 12.5 points in this game. They did cover, of course, but you look at that and say, you know what, this game, it probably felt closer than it should have been. But at this point, and the Cavs know what their goals are. Like the goal for this season is to win the NBA Finals in June. This will be a successful season for the Cavs if they win 4 games in June. That's the goal. So, and at this point too, with an 8-game lead on the Boston Celtics, who are in second place in the East, it's sort of a thing like, well, what are we playing for right now? And they are playing to build habits. And I don't think that there's a big focus on them locking down the number 1 overall seed with Oklahoma City. I would expect that does happen. I think that they will finish with a better record than OKC, just because OKC's schedule is much more difficult between now and the end of the regular season than the Cavs. The Cavs have a pretty mild schedule. They do have a trip out west, but it's not as if they're playing the murderer's row of West Coast teams. Like they're done with OKC. They're done with the Lakers. They're done with the Rockets. They're done with the Warriors. They're done with the Nuggets. They have 1 game against Memphis left, but I think that's the only team in the top 5 out west that they still have to play. So like their schedule is easy. I do think that they'll get the number 1 overall seed, but we've seen this now a few times where the Cavs play with their food a little bit, if you will. And I thought that's what they did, certainly in the first half. And I do think the energy level in the first half was not good enough. But I also think that the first half was maybe a little bit more about missing shots than it was bad energy. Like, was the energy level good enough? Was the execution good enough? Did they play at a championship level in the first half of this game? No, absolutely not. I mean, in the first quarter, they scored 24 points, which is very unlike the Cavs. They were 8 of 27 from the floor in the first quarter. They were 2 of 12 from deep in the first quarter. And in the second quarter, you know, they looked a little bit better, but things still weren't great. It wasn't the Cavs offense. And really the first quarter or the second quarter was like, well, they closed it really well because they were only down by 1 at halftime, but they were down in the second quarter significantly. They were down by as many as 15 points in the second quarter. They closed it to 1 at halftime. They went on, you know, I don't know if that was quite a Cavalanche where we saw Darius Garland hit a couple of threes at the end of the quarter. And he had not a great night. We'll talk about that coming up in a little bit too. But this is a team that I think right now kind of knows it can play with its food and be fine in some of these matchups. Now, if they came out like this and had this energy level in a game, say they had this energy level on Sunday against Milwaukee, that might be a little bit concerning. But having this energy level in a game on the road in Chicago, you know, I don't think that arena is all that lively to watch a 24-37 Bulls team right now. I don't find a ton of fault in that. Like, I just don't think that is that big of a deal. But in the same token, we do have to talk about like how good this team is, right? They've won 11 straight games for the third time this season. That is an incredible feat. There have been 4 winning streaks in the NBA this year of 11 games or more. The Cavs are responsible for 3 of them. OKC won 15 straight games. The Cavs have a 15-game winning streak. The Cavs have a 12-game winning streak. Now the Cavs have an 11-game winning streak. And that speaks to how good this team is. Like, this team has dominated all year long. They had one bad stretch in January. The games they lost to Houston and that Philadelphia lost. Like, that's really, and I guess if you want to say maybe right around Thanksgiving, the 2 losses to Atlanta. Like, you can very easily explain, I think 5 of their losses is just, yeah, that was a little bit of a bad stretch. Like, they had a hiccup for a week. They've had basically 2 bad weeks all season. That's remarkable in a season as long as the NBA's, as tough as the NBA is, because this league, I think, is immensely talented right now. Like, Chicago didn't have a lot of their roster, and they're a pretty beat up team. And I think part of that is maybe they want to not be in the play-in, but they still have talented dudes. Like, Kobe White's still a good basketball player. I can't believe Taylor Horton Tucker had the night he did. Like, that was remarkable to watch. I just did not believe acrobatic layup after acrobatic layup was going to go in, but that's what happened. And the Cavs found a way to overcome it. And all that matters, I do think, from this game is that they showed they could turn it on. And they showed that they can overcome these slow starts. Now, in an ideal world, of course, they don't have these slow starts. And maybe against Miami tonight, they won't have a slow start. Maybe they'll look better in the first quarter. But the fact that there's not a hole that's too big for them. This is 3 straight games where they've trailed by at least 15 points and come back and won. Ideally, they don't get down 15. Like, they don't go into a game planning to be down 15 points. But this team is never out of a game because of how good this offense is. The fact that they were tied with just under 7 minutes left and won the game by 22 points speaks to just how dominant this team is. Yeah, it's the Bulls, and the Bulls aren't very good. But you know what? They still get paid. And when you're in a close game with 7 minutes left, typically the bad teams find a way to elevate themselves a little bit, make themselves a little bit better. And I thought, and give Chicago credit, I thought that team, for who they had available on Tuesday night, I thought they played well. Give them credit for that. But I also do think that the Cavs proved, again, how great they are because they can flip a switch in the middle of a game. And that's a dangerous thing. You would prefer to see them play from wire to wire really great, but that doesn't happen 82 times in a season. The fact that they're kind of able to coast or be in, I guess, chill mode for the first 36 minutes or so of this one, and then really turn it on for the final 12, it's really impressive to watch. And it always does feel like it's coming to. Like, it never felt like watching this game, even when they were down by 15, it never felt like they were going to lose this game, right? Like, it never felt like this game was actually in danger. It almost felt like, the Cavs almost seem a little bit annoyed with the game, right? Like, they almost seem a little bit annoyed that Chicago is playing as well as they are, because that means they're going to have to flip the switch in the fourth quarter, and that is exactly what they did. A big reason why they flipped the switch and went on that fourth quarter Cavalanche, well, it was Jarrett Allen. It was Javonte Green. We're going to talk about the games that those two guys had next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by Open Phone. Running a small business means you're wearing a lot of hats. Your personal phone becomes your business phone, and before you know it, you're juggling customer calls day and night. And as your team grows, it becomes impossible to manage everything with just your personal number. That's where Open Phone comes in. It is the #1 business phone system designed to help you keep your work and personal life separate. So for just $15 a month, that's the cost of a few cups of coffee. You get complete transparency and visibility into everything happening with your business phone number. Open Phone works through an app on your phone or computer and integrates with tools like HubSpot and hundreds of others. It also uses AI-powered call transcripts and summaries, so you'll have a rundown of your calls and action items the second you hang up. Plus, you miss a call? No problem. Automated messages are sent directly to your customer, ensuring that you never miss the opportunity to engage. So right now, OpenPhone is offering 20% off your first 6 months when you go to openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That is openphone.com/LockedOnNBA, openphone.com/LockedOnNBA, LOCKEDONNBA, for 20% off your first 6 months. Again, openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said at the top of the show, you can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. Jarrett Allen was fantastic in this game against Chicago. I thought this was one of the best games that Allen has played all season long. So he finished the night with 25 points on 10 of 11 shooting, had 17 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. I thought that this was maybe not his best game of the season. That might go to the game they won against OKC back in January at home. But I thought that this was one of his best games of the season. I came away from this one thoroughly impressed with what Allen did. Also, he was 5 of 5 from the free throw line, which is an important thing because there's a really cool thing that Jarrett Allen has the opportunity to do this year. And a night like tonight really does help him get there. But Jarrett Allen has the chance to be the first player in NBA history to finish a season shooting 70% from the floor or better and 70% or better from the free throw line. Entering play on Tuesday, Allen was shooting 70.7% from the floor, 74% from the free throw line. So it looks like he's got a really good chance to do this. And I think that's a stat you've probably never heard of before, right? Like no one thinks of the 70-70 club because it doesn't exist because no one's in it, but also like, why would you think of that type of thing? And I think that kind of speaks to who Jarrett Allen is as a player. It's kind of like, well, you don't often think of him. I think it's really easy for him to just sort of exist in the background on a team that has Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland and Evan Mobley. But I also think that a night like Tuesday in Chicago is a really good reminder of what he's capable of, and that how he is probably the guy on this roster that sacrifices the most. I speak a lot about Donovan Mitchell's sacrifice and what he gives up and how he has taken a step to the side to allow Darius Garland and Evan Mobley to take steps forward, right? Well, I think that the other guy that I don't know if Jarrett Allen has taken a step to the side or a step back or however you want to phrase it, but what would Jarrett Allen look like if he were the third option on a team? If he were playing as the only big man on a team, like how good would he be in that situation? Because Evan Mobley did not play tonight, out with rest. And Jarrett Allen, I don't think it's coincidental that on that type of night, Jarrett Allen was really able to step up. And could he be this player for 82 games? Probably not. Like I wouldn't expect him to be a guy that would average 25 and 17 over a season. Like that is probably a little bit ridiculous. But could he average 20 and 12, 20 and 13 if this was the type of usage that he got on a nightly basis? I don't see why he couldn't. And, you know, I don't think he would shoot 91% from the floor the way that he did tonight. But I think that there's a lot of things that he shows when he gets the opportunity. It feels like he always steps up. And he's not perfect. He's going to have off nights. Every player is going to have off nights. But I don't think that it's coincidental that his opportunity was greater and he really stepped up to the plate for it, because that's kind of what he's done all year. I think it's another thing too. You know, we talk about Evan Mobley being out with rest, and it's part of the plan that the Cavs have because they want to be fresh come playoff time. But the Cavs have played 61 games this year. Jarrett Allen has played 61 games this year. And I think it has been something that is important to him that he plays in every game, that he's available for his team. That is part of what he brings to the table is the consistency that you know you're going to be able to count on him night in and night out. And that's a tough thing to do in this league. But the fact that he's averaging 13 and 10 as the fourth, or I guess at this point, maybe fifth option because of DeAndre Hunter coming, or even sixth option with Ty Jerome with how good he's been too. I think that just shows, one, how good he is. And it sort of brings the question to me, like, what exactly would he look like? Not saying that he's a star player, but what would it look like if he were the big guy on the team as opposed to one of two? And certainly, and this is not a slight at him, but the lesser of two options because of how good Evan Mobley is. Like that doesn't mean Jarrett Allen is less good than he is. I'm not saying that he's a lesser player, but Evan Mobley very clearly is the better of the two players, right? Like that is something that matters here, that he's the second best player at really his own position on this team and is still capable of this, is still this good. And I thought that a big reason why the Cavs won this game was because of Jarrett Allen. You talk about that run that they went on in the fourth quarter, the Cavalanche that won them the game. Well, Jarrett Allen was awesome during that. In the fourth quarter, made all four shots that he took. He only played 5 minutes. Like part of it, you know, he checks back in right as that Cavalanche is starting. Scores 9 points. Doesn't miss a shot. Doesn't miss a free throw. Like he just shows up, does his job. He was awesome. I think that he's the biggest reason why they won this game. Another reason they won this game, though, I thought Javonte Green was terrific. These were his first real minutes with the Cavs. You know, he played both in the first half and second half. We had seen him play before in garbage time. I don't remember what that game was, but Javonte Green played 18 minutes tonight. Like he played more minutes than Sam Merrill off the bench. And Green finished with 11 points. He was a plus 24, which was the highest mark of anybody coming off of the bench. I thought he was really good. He made made 2 threes with 4 or 5 from the field, didn't make his free throws, but he also, I think, brought a little bit of energy that the Cavs lacked in this game. You know, we talked about that in the first half, how they didn't have enough energy. And then in the second half, they go on that run in the second quarter. Well, who was on the floor for the entirety of that run? It was Javonte Green. And he probably they weren't planning to play him as many minutes as they did. Part of the reason why was because between the timeout around a little like 4.5 minutes left in the first half, the Bulls called the timeout. And then like as soon as play started, Donovan Mitchell walked to the scorer's table to check in, and he was checking in for Javonte Green. And there was only one stoppage the rest of the first half. And it was Javonte Green got fouled and went to the free throw line. And obviously you cannot sub out a shooter. So Donovan Mitchell only played 12 minutes in the first half because his final first half shift just never happened because there was never a dead ball for him to check in for that opportunity. But Javonte Green was awesome in those minutes. He was awesome in the fourth quarter. What impressed me about him was not necessarily the unselfishness, but the ability to make the right play. Like he read everything properly. Maybe the one pass that was, I don't know if it was ruled a turnover or not, just because the Cavs got the ball right back. Like I don't know if Chicago ever actually possessed it, but he tried to squeeze a pass in there to Jarrett Allen in a window that's probably a little bit too tight. But the dump off he had to Isaac Okoro, where, man, it looked like he wanted to go up there and really throw it down. And Javonte Green can jump. Like that guy can jump out of the gym. So it looked like, oh, this guy's trying to catch a body here. Like he's trying to put somebody on a poster and gets his defender in the air, tosses it off to Isaac Okoro for an easy layup. Like that is the type of thing that when a guy signs after a buyout for the rest of the season, I don't know that you can always count on them to make the right play, because part of it is, I'm in some ways that type of player is playing for their NBA career, like to keep their career going. And the fact that Javonte Green comes in and is immediately very unselfish, maybe to a fault, and makes the right play over and over and over again. I don't think it's a surprising thing that he was a big part of both big runs the Cavs went on in this game. I thought that he was fantastic. I don't know if there's room for him in the rotation in the postseason. I really don't. Like that's how good this Cavs team is. But it's crazy that on a night when Evan Mobley doesn't play and Darius Garland I didn't think was very good, Donovan Mitchell didn't play a ton in the first half because of what I just talked about, the Cavs can just go deeper and deeper and deeper into the bench, and they find something that works. Every lever that Kenny Atkinson has pulled has worked this season. And that lever on Tuesday night in Chicago was empowering Jarrett Allen and Javonte Green. And both of those guys came up big for the Cavs, and that's a big reason why they won. I thought Max Strus was really good in this one too. He was a team high plus 26 in 24 minutes. He hit 3 threes, finished with 11 points, had 5 assists. I thought that this was one of the better games that he's played lately. I was really impressed with the game that he played. And that was a nice boost to see in the starting lineup for sure. And then there are some wild stats that we need to talk about with the Cavs, because they are, as you can imagine, in some pretty historic territory. So we're going to do that next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by BetterHelp. Who's in your support system? We all need people to lean on. I have people to lean on. You need people to lean on, whether it's your friends, family, mentors, professionals, even the strongest leaders there are, they need people to lean on. Athletes, they know that asking for help is something that makes them better. Asking for help is something that can make you better. And therapy is one of the best ways to not only ask for that help, but to build a strong support system. It's not just for tough times. It helps with setting boundaries, developing coping skills, and of course, doing the thing we all want to do, and that is becoming the best version of yourself. It's something that you want to feel supported. And to feel supported, you have to be able to build that support system. You want to be able to help create the best version of yourself, not just for yourself, but for that support system too. And therapy isn't just about crisis moments. It's a tool for self-improvement, stress management, navigating the challenges that life throws your way, because those challenges exist for everybody. And therapy is one of the best ways to help navigate those. BetterHelp is convenient and accessible. It is entirely online, making it easier than ever to connect with a licensed therapist from anywhere. With over 30,000 professionals available, you can find the right fit and switch anytime at no extra cost. So build your support system with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA, LOCKEDONNBA to get 10% off your first month. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, you can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. I do want to touch on one thing before I get to some insane stats. Darius Garland, I didn't think had a great game in this one. He finished the night. He did make 5 threes, which really inflated his numbers. And they came in big moments. And I think that matters as part of this conversation. He finished with 19 points, was 7 of 22 shooting, 5 of 11 from 3. So if you are going to have a rough shooting night, at least it was still 45% from 3. It was everything inside the arc that he couldn't make. Like a lot of the floaters that we have seen Darius Garland routinely make this year, whether he's been, closely guarded, they've been wide open, somewhere in between. Like he's been really good at that. He's just made floaters consistently. And he could not find the bottom of the rim, or the bottom of the net, I should say, with those. His numbers since the game against New York, where he went down and, he finished the game, I believe, but missed the next 2. So entering tonight, he was 13 of 39 from the floor since New York, 4 of 14 from 3. So now he is 9 of 25 from 3, which is not bad, but he's still not shooting the ball well overall from the floor, right? So he's 20 of 51 from the floor? 20 of 61 from the floor. That's not a place that we expect Darius Garland to be. And I do wonder if that hip is still bothering him. I wonder if with the rest days that we have seen, and I know that Darius just had a couple of days off with that hip injury, but I do wonder with the rest days that we just saw for Donovan Mitchell on Sunday and Evan Mobley on Tuesday, if maybe on Wednesday tonight against the Miami Heat, if Darius Garland doesn't play. Like I do think that is something that could make some sense. We'll see if it happens. Okay, so now some insane stats. 1, tonight, Wednesday night against Miami, the Cavs can become the first team in the NBA this season to clinch a playoff berth. They have already clinched a play-in spot, like a postseason berth, if you will, that if they lose every game the rest of their season and everything, and Miami wins every game the rest of the season, the Cavs could conceivably finish 7th. Obviously, it's not going to happen. They're not in danger of missing the playoffs. But if they win on Wednesday night against Miami, they will officially clinch a place in the top 6 in the Eastern Conference. That doesn't mean anything. The thing to, keep an eye on is the magic number for the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference, which that'll happen in a couple of weeks, most likely. The Cavs are now the 10th team in NBA history to start a season with 51 wins in their first 61 games. So 9 teams before this season's Cavs team have started a season 51-10 or better. Of the 9 that have done it, 5 of them won the NBA title that year. This doesn't mean that the Cavs will win the title, but they are in elite company. They are in absolutely elite company with what they have done so far. And now, another thing after this win, and this was sent my way a little bit earlier, and I thought that this was a pretty wild stat because it's not something that you necessarily think about, but this comes from Jason Starrett. Says, after the win against the Bulls, the Cavs now have the NBA's best record at home, where they just don't lose games at home. They've been incredible inside what was Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, what now is Rocket Arena. They are 28-4 at home. The next best team is OKC, who is 26-4. So they're a game worse than the Cavs at home, but they can make that up because they have the same number of losses. They have the best record on the road in the NBA. The Cavs record on the road is 23-6. That is a half game better than OKC, who is 23-7 away from home. Wildly impressive stuff. It's also better than Boston. I know there was something floating around today But like them and Boston are neck and neck. Boston has played 2 more away games. They're 24-7. The Cavs have played 20. They've played less. So like Boston does have the most road wins. So to call them the best road team in the NBA, like I don't think that's a ridiculous thing. They have the most road wins in the NBA. Now, the Cavs can finish with more road wins than the Celtics do, of course, but it's between Boston, the Cavs, and OKC. Like it's all very close in that. But winning percentage wise, they're a little bit better right now. They have the best record in the NBA against teams that are over 500. And this is the one that I think matters the most. So this season, the Cavs are 23-6 against teams with records that are 500 or better. There is not another team that has fewer than 10 losses against teams with records 500 or better. OKC is 22-10, so they've played a few more games, and by virtue of being out west, like their record's going to look a little bit different. So this isn't exactly the most even statistic, but the Cavs are 23-6. The Boston Celtics are 21-12. The New York Knicks are 12-15. The Milwaukee Bucks are 10-14. There are 3 teams in the East above 500. The Pacers are 15-12. The Celtics are 21-12, and the Cavs are 23-6. Like there is such a big gap there. They also have the best record in the East against teams below 500, where they're 28-4. Pretty impressive stuff. They have the best record against their own conference in the NBA. Against the East, let me find this. Against the East, the Cavs are 34-7. Boston's 31-11. OKC against the West is 29-10. I will say though, OKC is like 20-1 against the East. Like it is wild. The only loss OKC has against a team in the Eastern Conference was a loss in Cleveland. That's it. They've won every other game against Eastern Conference teams. They play Boston coming up though. That'll be an interesting one to see. And then lastly, the Cavs also have, after tonight, and this is the one that changed, the Cavs have the best record in the NBA against their own division. The Cavs are 10-1 against Central Division opponents. And you might say, well, what does that matter, right? Like, who cares? The division thing doesn't really matter except for tiebreakers. And you're right. But look at the standings. 4 of the top 6 teams in the Eastern Conference are Central Division teams. So, yeah, the Cavs will play other teams that are not in the Central 4 times. Like, they play Miami 4 times. They played Brooklyn 4 times, or they play Brooklyn a 4th time next week. Like, so yes, but you're playing a good chunk of your games against good teams. And the Bulls stink, right? Like that's the 5th team in the Central, but Milwaukee doesn't, Indiana doesn't, Detroit doesn't. And the Cavs are 10-1 against their own division. The only game they lost was against the Pacers at home. That to me is something that I do think is, it's not something we're going to think about, and you're not going to raise a banner for it. But it is something that I do find it impressive because that's a pretty strong quality of opponent there too. But thank you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show, as I said earlier, anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. Cavs take on the Heat tonight, and I will be back tomorrow talking about that and so much more.